times now. So,
Charlie, you have the floor.
all right, welcome everybody. We're just gonna talk a little bit about AWS CDK, and specifically for security reasons, we're going to talk about the way it can provision policies and roles least privileged to the resources that it's provisioning. So let me share my screen here. There are a couple parts of the demo where it takes a few minutes to deploy the resources. We can ask questions at that point, and we can have questions at the end. But let me share. So what we have, part of the demo is around CDK itself, and then part of it will be around the policies and roles that it provisions. So if you're not aware, Amazon came out with a tool to automatically provision AWS resources, infrastructure as code, and you can go and read all about it on Amazon. One of the things about this tool I just want to point out is they support these different languages right now using this tool. You can write your infrastructure as code in JavaScript, TypeScript, Python, Java, and C#. I believe they're working on Go. So if you're a developer in any one of those languages, you don't have to learn a different coding language. Okay, now for the demo. I already have CDK installed. I am using the TypeScript language to run my CDK. You can choose otherwise. CDK, out of the box, they have a templating system where if I'm starting with no project at all, if you look over at my terminal session now, I can run a command to create a project for me. So I have some of this. I'm going to just copy and paste it in here so I don't screw it up. So I am going to create a project called, once again, I'm using the Node version, so your commands may vary slightly. CDK, they have a command to do an init in PX. See, our demo already failed. Okay, so you can initialize three things with the TypeScript type project. You can initialize an application, which is a set of constructs. You can initialize a library, which is maybe just one construct that you want to build. And they also have this, I can initialize a whole sample application. So that's what we're going to just demo today. We're going to init this sample app, and then you have to give it the language that you want. And in our case, I'm going to use TypeScript. But if you want to use a different language, you change this parameter. Okay, so now it's going to go and do a bunch of things, and we'll show you. It's going to, because this is a Node application, it's going to create a package.json file for me. It's going to, first I got to make a directory. Lightning demo. I'll run that command again. Yeah, to init that application, it checks if your directory is empty or not, because it wouldn't want to overwrite anything that's in there. So let this run. Just show a few things that it creates. Once again, this is just a quick way to get up and started. You'll notice here that it noticed that this wasn't even a Git repository, so it converted this into a Git repository for me. Created a package.json, and now it's installing all the dependencies. Let those install here shortly. And then I will show you, here's my Lightning demo folder. It created a bin folder underneath it, created a lib folder, even created a test folder. Actually, even created a README file. So once again, this is just some templating going on for like NPM, TypeScript type stuff, but you could create your own template for your own language. So let's, like I said, it created a test folder, created my actually CD code lib folder, and it created a bin folder for me. So I'm set up. My sample application is ready to go. Just take a quick look at it before, hang on, I gotta move this silly bar here. Oh no. There we go. I'm sorry, the zoom bar was right over my all right, so created the README, in the README, it gives you some of the commands you can run. Like I said, it created a sample app with tests, so I can run those tests. Run tests. I'll just let that kick off. And then I'm going to look at this sample application that it actually created. And you find that in the lib folder. So ran the test, said, hey, 2 tests passed, everything passed, good. So this sample app, what it does is actually creates a SQS queue within AWS. In our case, because I did the sample app, it's going to call it Lightning Demo Queue. It creates a topic that I can publish to, and it creates a subscription, which subscribes that topic to the queue. So if you look at this code, it's pretty high level code. This is all you have to do to create a topic, a queue, and subscription. So what I'm going to do, just go show you a couple of the CDK commands before I get it kicked off. So what CDK does, takes this TypeScript, compiles it into JavaScript. Takes the JavaScript, creates a CloudFormation template. I'll show you that CloudFormation template right now. So there's a CDK command, CDK synth. So that's what's going to happen when I run this command. Takes the TypeScript, generates JavaScript. Takes the JavaScript, generates CloudFormation template. Outputs that CloudFormation template to your terminal. So just take a quick look at it. I'm not a CloudFormation expert. You guys are probably more experts than I am. But if I read this correctly, here's a resource. It's going to create a resource. It's going to create a queue resource. And this is going to be the name of that within CloudFormation. It's going to create a queue policy. And this is going to be the name of that policy in CloudFormation. It's going to create a subscription, and that's the name, etc. And it's going to create my topic in that CloudFormation. So I'm going to kick this off. It's going to take just, let me just jump over. I also have AWS up here. Let's jump over here. And on the left, you'll notice that my stack is not there. And I'm going to go ahead and run this. So CDK synth command, and they also have a, well, let me, before I run it, let me show another command, diff. So what the diff command does is it says, okay, I have this code in CDK, and now CDK is going to go out to CloudFormation and going to say, hey, what's up in CloudFormation? And there's nothing in CloudFormation right now. So CDK can tell you, well, what it's going to do if I run this command, or if I deploy it, what's going to happen. At the top here, it says, I am going to create an IAM. I'm going to change IAM. I'm going to create this policy. I don't quite understand all this metadata stuff yet, but down in the bottom, the little plus sign says you're going to create a resource. It's going to create an SQS queue. The second line says, hey, it's going to create my queue policy. Third line is going to create my subscription. Fourth line is going to create my topic. So are you sure you want to do that? Yes, I am. So now I can do a deploy. The code, it looks exactly like I want to deploy this sample app. So we're going to let this kick off. If there are any changes to IAM policies, roles, it will prompt you and ask you, are you sure you want to make these changes? Yes, I do. All right. So at this point, CDK built the CloudFormation. It is now creating the CloudFormation stack. Shift to the left screen. Here's my Lightning demo stack. It says create in progress. I can look at it. The screen's kind of scrunched here, but that's fine. I can look at the resources that it's creating. Once again, this will just take not too long to create because it's pretty quick. However, I want you to call your attention back to the code up on the right. Nowhere in this code did I tell it to create a policy. But CDK knew it had to create this policy to get these resources to work together. And we're going to take a look at the policy that it actually created once it's done. So it looks like it's actually done. So that's the key point. Nowhere did I tell it had to create a policy. It's just the built-in knowledge of CDK. It said, oh, if you want this, whatever, if you want this topic to use this subscription on this queue, we need to have a policy in place. Because I didn't specify one, CDK went in the background and created it. And we'll just take a look at that policy. And this is what the purpose of this demo is. Not only did it create the policy, it created a least privilege policy. So here is the topic that it created. Lightning demo stack, Lightning demo topic. It's a very unique name. And then if we look at the access policy on the left side of the screen, CDK went ahead and created this access policy for us. CDK knew what actions to add. CDK, once again, purpose of this demo, it created this least privilege policy on this resource. All right, so you can pause for a minute. Any?
Yeah, I've got a quick question on like your policy, the least privilege. So like SNS set topic attributes, could you specify like a template and remove that set or even the delete topic so that maybe the topic is completely, you know, read only in some perspective? You can list, you can read, but you can't, you don't mess with my topic. Is that an option, do you think?
Yeah, so the next the next part of this is,
I jumped your gun, I'm sorry.
no, that's fine.
That's the thing. No.
CDK created this policy what CDK thought it should be. If you need to modify this policy, you can override what CDK creates.
Okay.
And you can say, no, I know what policies I need, CDK. You don't need to do it. I know what I need to do.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. I have a later on, outside of the scope of the demo, I have some language specific questions regarding CDK that you can provide insight on maybe. So
yeah, maybe. I'm not a TypeScript expert.
Me neither. So yeah, go ahead.
Okay, the next thing I just want, any other questions about that?
My question is largely about how like the logic in TypeScript in the CDK like infrastructure, how it knows to make those changes, but maybe that's like a later question, or maybe something one of us can explore in a later lightning talk another time.
Okay, I know it, I don't know a lot about it.
Cool. Well, carry on.
So the next thing or any other questions? Next thing I'll just add in here, I don't know if this is really a CDK type thing, TypeScript type thing, but it's called aspects. There's a when CDK builds all these constructs behind the scenes, it's building them in a JSON blob, and you can export that to your disk and see what it's all building. But the other thing that happens commonly happens is I need to add tags to my resources. So CDK has a way using this concept called an aspect. It says, if you look at my code up here, any resource created within this constructor, I want to add a tag. So I'm going to edit this here. So what I'm trying to illustrate here is I can add one line of code and it'll add a tag to any resource that was created that accepts tags. So in this case, I'm just I have my command or my code editor set up so that I can see all the functions. There's a tags function or method, or I don't know. For this constructor, I want to add, and I can do a key value pair. I want to add a tag called demo, and I want to add a value called lightning. All right. So as you can see, as I was kind of filling out the function or this call here, my VS Code was kind of helping me out. So I just saved that. So now if I come back down here and do a CDK diff, you would expect it to say, Now these resources are going to change because you want these tags added to it. Once again, notice I just added one line of code, but there are two resources that accept tags. So it's saying it's going to modify the queue resource, going to set the tag, and it's going to modify the tag or the topic. It's going to set the tag. So let me go ahead and deploy that again. While that's deploying, I switch to the left here. Go on my tag screen. You can see there are no tags right now. We'll let this deploy. So I haven't completely got my head wrapped around this whole concept of aspects within certainly TypeScript and within CDK, but this also a very powerful feature where, you know, because it creates these resources for you, I can easily add attributes to these resources like tags. Just let this finish running. And it is done. So I should be able to refresh my page over here and I should be able to see my tags. See my tags right here. Yeah, so it added that demo tag. You know, this was added to the topic and the tag was also added to the queue. I'm not gonna go look at it, but it'll be there. Any questions about that? All right, I'm gonna switch to a little bit more, or I'm gonna switch to a different example that we've been using within our team, and that's a way to deploy EMR cluster. So EMR cluster, a little bit more complicated than just a queue and a topic, but I've pre-set up this demo, so I'm not gonna type in any code here, but just gonna switch to a different. Oh, actually, before I go, because I don't really want this anymore, I can destroy it. So I'm going to go ahead and destroy this. Unless anybody wants to look at it, we can always redeploy it. But this will now go destroy my CloudFormation stack and just destroy all the resources that were created from that stack. But while that's happening, I'm going to take you into a different folder here that I already have set up. It's this Lightning EMR folder. So what this CDK stack does is it creates a step function which would launch an EMR cluster. And once this is done, I'm going to switch in there and I'm going to run that. We can look at the EMR or this step function to create this cluster. Really, once again, it's very abstracted. It's really just 2 lines of code to create this step function to launch this cluster. We do pass in some properties on how we want the cluster created, what size of instances and et cetera we want as part of the cluster, pass in the subnet that it needs to be created in. But all it is, we create this EMR cluster construct, which has all of our properties on how to create it. And we create this state machine, and this state machine has a step in there which would launch this cluster. This bit of code doesn't actually launch the cluster, it just creates the configuration for it. And this is the folder that it's in. I want to have this set up ahead of time. So once again, I can do oh, the other thing I'll show you is in this folder, we actually have a couple of different stacks. So you can have multiple stacks within an application. So we have 2 stacks in here. So any of these Cdk commands, I can specify the stack that I want to deploy. So I'm going to actually deploy this demo stack. Let's go ahead and kick that off. So remember, keep in mind, 2 lines of code up here. Basically, define the cluster, create the state machine. I'm going to kick this off because it takes a little bit and we can take a look at it. But what this is doing in the background is for an EMR cluster, we actually need 3 roles created. We need policies assigned to those roles. And then the state machine itself also needs a role created. So as you can see, nowhere up in this code did I specify, oh, I need these roles created. I need these policies on the roll, these policies on the roles. CDK is smart enough to know that it needs those roles and it needs those policies. And because I didn't specify them, it's going to create them for me. So while that's creating, I'm going to jump over to that stack on the left side. So here's our demo EMR account 0 stack. And here's the resources that it's in the process of creating. Any questions at this point? Let's take another 30 seconds or so.
With Terraform, you can like manage the state outside of code, right? You can use like the command line, you can move existing resources and say, this resource, I'm binding it to this variable or this object. So like, I don't want you to like create something from scratch. I want you to basically fake it and take something that's already existing. Is that something you can do with CDK, or you would have to write code around that when you want to interact with existing resources that may or may not be declared in some other CloudFormation stuff? Or do you have to like write explicit code and then like add and remove that over time to get to that like state import, state remove thing in Terraform?
I don't know exactly if you can. I'm not going to say you can't, but I haven't. We didn't do that on our proof of concept because we knew we had this. We knew we didn't have any resources out there that we wanted to import. We might be able to. We can maybe Google it, but I'm not sure right offhand.
So I have a question regarding Emac cluster versions. Are there? Does that take into account like 6.0.0 versus 6.3.0, which introduces additional, it's a major rev in Spark. It has some additional service account kind of, you've got to have new firewall ports that are specified in actually beginning at 6.1, but between 6.0 and 6.3. Is that something that you can specify where it will take care of that, or is that more in a you've got to have some level of JSON on being able to specify those things?
Yeah, in this properties structure, you can pass in a bunch of different properties for Emac clusters. And if I show you the stages here, these are some of the properties that we have passed in. And this is specific to our use case, but yeah, so there's a release label property here. You can override, you can override or pass in whatever release label you want, 5.3 or 6.0 or whatever. And then, depending on your use case, ours, we needed these couple of applications installed.
Yeah.
Right. The subnet ID, you can pass it in, the size of instances you want, etc. So that's all customizable. Okay, so our CDK stack is complete. So, what I wanted to show you definitely here was, once again, passing 2 lines of code. And like I said, it went ahead and created 4 different roles for us, because all of 3 of the roles are required by the cluster. We have a auto scaling role required by the cluster. We have an instant, it's kind of hard to read, sorry, with the screen, cluster instance role, and we have a cluster service role. So once again, without knowing what roles were required, CDK went and filled those in for us. If we take a look at one of these roles, this role is pretty generic, but all this role is doing is assigning the AWS managed policy role that's needed for auto scaling. But for instance, where it gets a little more, we can take a look at this this state machine role. So we're telling this state machine that, hey, state machine, you have the ability to launch this cluster. So CDK went and built this inline policy for us. Once again, you'll see that resources in here are, it ties this policy exactly to the resources that we've provisioned. We're not seeing any stars in here. And that really is the end of the demo. Are there any questions?
That's really cool. If you don't mind, I was going to stop the demo for recording for if people want to ask questions. So
sounds good.